Stop. I can't take it anymore.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I mean it.
I don't think he felt anything.
Hello and welcome back. We are breaking up with RBS. This is episode 14. I am Tawny Santabria.
And I am JDK Winnikin. We are here to debunk the junk.
The junk.
Or some junk. Plenty of junk. Whatever junk comes up.
Mm-hmm.
My junk.
Mm-hmm.
This case, your junk. Yes. Way to jump right in. We're excited to have a guest today. It's our first guest.
I know. So excited. I couldn't sleep last night.
Wow. Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you must be tired.
No, I'm so excited.
You're just
when we're done.
When we're done. Yes. We do have our first guest on the show. As you might all remember, first of all, actually, before I get there, thank you for joining us for another episode of Breaking Up with RBS. And if for those of you who are listening on 106.9 Warm this morning, good morning. Thanks for joining us. And if you're listening on our podcast platform, whatever time of day it happens to be, I hope it's enjoyable for you. And be sure to check out the video feed of this show on our YouTube channel, Breaking Up with RBS. Spell out the word and you'll find us. You can also join our Facebook group of the same name to get material, comments from us, written pieces in between episodes. Now that's covered.
Whew. Now you feel better.
It's tough to keep that checklist in my brain every week.
No, I get it.
Yeah, but anyway, so we started a couple weeks ago talking about parenting. Kind of this organic part of the conversation kind of came up around parenting, and we continued with it last week. And we finished last week with a call to action. We wanted to talk to parents, and lo and behold, we have a parent.
Here I am.
Here you are. We'd like to welcome Emily here. Hi, Emily. Thank you for being here.
Hi,
Thanks
Emily.
for having me.
So glad you're here.
You're welcome. And Emily has listened to the show and reached out after our call and said, I'm a parent of a 2-year-old, I understand.
Yes, my son is 2.
2. So
Terrible 2s.
So you don't sleep much.
No, I get probably like 5 hours of sleep a night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I haven't slept 8 hours straight
Mhm.
in 2.5 years.
Man.
I miss it.
I bet. So anyway, Emily, whatever we were talking about, a lot of the stuff we talked about has resonated with you, it sounds like, and wanted to come on and talk a little bit about the various BS stories involved in being a new mom, being a mom, that type of thing. So thank you for being here. You get to go home with a mug, which is fabulous. So you have a 2-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
You're new to this game.
A little bit, yeah.
New to this whole thing. So when we talk about BS stories and you compare it to, you're hearing about parenting, what came up for you? What are the things that have come up for you that might be BS stories for you about being a parent?
There's been a lot.
Okay.
I think being a new mom, there is a lot of comparison. And that's just a natural thing that happens is comparison to people on social media, comparison to how your mom may have done it, comparison to your peers. There's just so much comparison when being a new mom because this is new for you, right? Like this is a whole new game. You've never done this before. So that's one thing that really resonated with me was the comparison piece of parenting in general.
There's a lot of advice that comes from places, isn't there, Tawny?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's so much information out there. People have done it before. They want to share. Of course, new moms want to be good moms. And so there's lots out there to learn and glean. And it's exhausting.
It's very exhausting.
Yeah.
Was it the same? I mean, Tawny,
yeah.
you're a mother as well. Your kids are long grown.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the same for you, even though there was not social media and all that? I mean, did you?
Well, certainly not being able to see what every other new mom was doing at any given moment on some kind of platform helps, right?
Yeah.
So you could just be in your space with your baby, and certainly, yes, you would get information from your own mom or the neighbor, but we didn't have as much coming at us. So yeah, that piece is pretty exhausting, I would imagine, and just the energy around comparing, is not a nice flow or a pleasant sort of experience.
It's not, and it kind of brings you away from being present with your child and building that connection with them. Because then when you're a new mom, that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? You grew this child for 9 months inside of your body, and now you have to connect with them as a human being and as a soul.
Yes.
And comparing takes that away.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question on the stories.
Yeah.
The comparison stories. I would think that in most of the comparison stories, when you're telling yourself those stories, you're coming out on the low side. You're not comparing yourself and going, oh, I got this nailed better, more so than this person.
Right.
It's almost always being tough on yourself. Is that how it's been?
Yeah. A lot of it is, I'm not a good enough mom. I'm a bad mom because I did this instead of this. I should have done this. And that's where the bull shoulds come in. And that's when I first listened to this podcast, that's one thing that I was like, wow, I do that a lot. That's a bull should, or that's a BS, right? And so that plays a huge piece in it. And I usually always come out the negative side, which is unfortunate.
Are a lot of the bull shoulds around, I shouldn't have reacted that way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think as parents, speaking for myself as a new mom, well, new-ish mom, reaction is normal. It's a normal emotion.
Well, you're still a human being, even though you're a mom.
I'm a human being, right?
Right. Even though you're a mom.
Yeah.
Like the status of mom puts us in this different kind of category.
Right.
That now we have to be harsher on ourselves or
you
more.
You have to be superhuman.
Right.
It seems like.
Right.
Well, I mean, we already are because we brought a human into the world.
Which is the truth, frankly. From speaking from the male perspective, that's just
yes.
I try not to complain about too many things, particularly after I think of the people I know who've given birth. It's like, okay. Anyway.
Yeah, Emily, I'm so curious. Like when you first became a mom, like hours of being a mom or days into being a mom, what do you remember about that?
The first word that comes to me is pain. It was very painful. And no one ever really warns you about what they call the fourth trimester, right? It is so painful and emotionally and physically because you just went through this traumatic experience of bringing a child into this world. And now here you are with this other human that you're just responsible for. Like the hospital hands you the baby and they're like, okay, bye.
Right.
And I'm like, what do I do with it? Like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
So
yeah. And what did you do?
It was kind of instinct.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like, I don't really know how to explain it. It was instinct. Like, I just knew what to do.
Yeah.
And my son had some health issues at first. He wasn't latching on. And so there was a lot of, fear with that because I was like, oh my gosh, he's not eating. Like, should I be doing something different? And that bullshit.
Yes.
I got myself.
There it is. There it is. Yes.
Awareness is half the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sort of making a problem out of, even in those beginning moments of this isn't working the way that either I've been told it's supposed to, or the books have told me, or the nurse told me, or what, and then that being a problem. But you instinctively knew
what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's in the body.
It is.
Yeah.
Our bodies as women naturally know how to be moms, right? I shouldn't say for everyone, but
well,
it's in our DNA.
We're wired to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And then we do this. And then oftentimes we get caught up in a thinking space that's telling us all the things that we should and better and good enough and perfect and all of the things that we're supposed to do to get through this time of being a mom. And none of it necessarily is specific to connect with your baby or just be here now with your baby.
Yeah.
It's always about the shoulds. Make sure you do this, or you should do this, or you should not do that. It's interesting. So we go from a body instinct space
it just takes
into a head space.
Right back into head.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the concerns and the stories come.
Yes.
Right. Well, because if this doesn't happen the way it's supposed to,
right,
he's not latching on. That means this. So did you catastrophize a lot? Like, if he's not going to eat, he's going to get sick. He's going to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot when he was first born. I had postpartum anxiety. And so I think it kind of stemmed from him not latching on to where my mind kind of just spiraled, right? Where I was thinking of, oh, I should be doing this different. I should be doing this different. I shouldn't be doing this. I am causing this. Something was wrong with this. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, something is wrong. Something is wrong. And I got to a point where I would take his temperature every hour until he was almost a year old because I was just so afraid of something happening to him.
Man.
So afraid. And being a new mom, there's no textbook on how to do this, right?
Is there, and this is a question maybe for both of you, is there a strong feeling when those things are coming up that everybody else knows how to do this motherhood thing but me? This is like the thing my body's designed to do, is to give birth, and I'm designed to nurture a child. And if you have struggles like that, feel like you're not good at it? Is that a story that comes up? Like you're failing as a woman?
For me, at least, yeah.
Yeah, not so much for me. I mean, I gotta really think a lot of years back, right? So, but also I wasn't inundated.
You can do it.
My memory skills. I wasn't inundated with all the things.
Yeah.
I wasn't on information overload at all. So there were moments of quiet. Did I know that I wasn't getting enough sleep? Did I know that I was like not sure what was happening sometimes? Yes, because I think that's something that wherever you become a mom and whenever you become a mom, it's not seamless if there's social media or not social media. But I think now that we can be on information overload and say, oh, let me Google that. If this is happening, let me Google that.
That's catastrophic.
Right. Right.
I know.
I
You don't Google anything.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And it doesn't help that people call that research.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
No, you going on Google is not research.
No.
That's looking things up.
Yes.
Right? And that's
Yes.
why they tell you not to go on, medical sites and try and diagnose yourself.
Yes.
with
Yes.
things. Yeah.
So just getting information for the sake of information, that is probably going to increase our anxiety.
The stories, maybe it's
Yes.
this. And then does this happen to you, Emily, where like if you're getting all that information on what this might be, you have to plan out like 3 or 4 response scenarios for each one?
Yeah.
Man.
Well, what I would do is I would schedule a doctor's appointment and I would bring my notes. And I'd be like, well, he's doing this and Google told me this. So what does this mean?
What was your doctor's reaction?
Well, it was his pediatrician and she'd be like, oh, well, it's just this. Yeah, he's fine. And I'm
He's
like,
good.
oh, okay.
Yeah, he's good. Is he breathing? Yes. Is he sleeping? Yes.
And babies are resilient.
Yes.
They are.
Also, right?
They are.
When we're connected with our babies as moms, like we're feeding off of each other, right? And that's an important part. If we're just stuck in trying to get more information, either about ourselves or our baby, we're going to create more anxiety.
Right.
Just tune into baby.
Be present.
Well, we've talked about on this show before that in a very different context, that nothing can get you present like hanging out with a baby.
It is a great opportunity for presence, being with the baby, because they have no other way to be. Like zero.
They just lay there.
They're just present. They're just there in their
They're
bodies.
just there.
Yeah, they are present.
They can't be. They don't think themselves into distress like we do.
That's
right?
true.
And when you watch a baby breathe, babies naturally breathe with their full trunk. Like they breathe with their belly and their lungs through the back. Like they take full breaths.
Yeah.
Which really good sign of health. We don't do this anymore unless we're presencing, practicing, right? And so even breathing with our baby.
That's smart.
That's interesting.
That's smart. Does it work on toddlers? Because sometimes I need to breathe in his presence.
Yes. What kind of games can we create with that?
Right.
Right. Toddlers
Well, it'll be
love
interesting when he's
games.
sleeping. You'll probably notice next time he's sleeping if he's still breathing with his whole body.
Yeah.
So, because that is their natural way of getting sleep, right? And relaxing and getting present.
And it was yours one day, and it was mine one day,
right?
Because we were all babies one day.
Mm-hmm.
We used to be able to do all of this naturally. Our body just wants to.
So not only is it part of our wiring to give birth, it's also part of our wiring to be present as babies.
Right.
And
so
then
does that mean I can lay around and do nothing all day?
As long as you don't make up a story about it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's interesting, because then what it suggests strongly, obviously, is that as we start telling ourselves stories from a mind space as we get older and get information overload, whether it's about parenting or not, we get out of that. We lose track.
Yes.
Or in the case of me, I never knew this was a thing. Getting into my body and the central nervous system, and I never knew that.
Yeah.
but it's there. That's the thing I keep coming back to. Is like, oh, there's plenty of examples of this.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
We could learn so much from babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to Emily, when you first had your son, support. What were your stories around support?
For the first week, I had some support. And then after that, people had to go back to work and go back to school and, you know, continue on with their lives. And then I was just there with the child.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time on FaceTime with my sister, who had just had a son a couple months prior. And so I think a lot of it was kind of winging it.
Yeah.
Having to figure things out, ask a lot of questions to the people around me, and really just learning how to be this whole new person who's responsible for this other person. Like I made my own person. How crazy is that?
Right.
And so now I just kind of have to, you know, I went with my instinct, and it was really difficult. My postpartum period, because I was kind of figuring things out on my own. And there was a lot of emotional issues with that, so to speak. Like I had postpartum anxiety. And so my mind was just running 24/7. And I feel like it kind of made me not be as present with my son when he was that age. Because now I look back at it and I look at all the photos and the videos that I have, and I kind of okay, this is a bullshit story, but I kind of say I should have been more present. I should have been doing this differently.
Good catch.
With him. I know.
Good catch.
I was coming out of my mouth and I was like, oh.
That's part of the point.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. We all have those, and they pop up at different times. It's the noticing, and then what do we want to do with them? Right.
Yeah.
They're going to happen, the bullshits or the other sorts of stories, and we have choice. Yeah. We can continue on track with them and add to them and color them and make them more whatever, or we can decide whether or not we even want to continue with them.
Yeah.
So, but the stories aren't going to go away. No.
The it seems what happens is that part of the process is just catching them sooner and sooner, and then knowing what to do, which really isn't needing to do anything other than recognize that they're there, breathing, getting that belly space, doing the little kid sleep, breathing. You know, seems like
the little kids sleep. It's so great.
It's quite an image.
I know. I used to tell people this in my yoga classes that I would teach a while back. I don't do that anymore, but you could. It looks like a wave. Looks like a wave.
I can kind of picture it.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So babies know how to do things.
Yeah, so we can learn from them.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're connecting, if you're present, and you can notice that, that connectivity is gonna.
Yeah.
It's gonna help.
So now you're in a different storyland. No longer in the baby newborn.
I am in the terrible twos, which is a story in itself.
It is. It is.
Wow.
Do you ever feel set up like by her with that? Like you said,
a little
that?
bit.
Like, totally happens every week in here. Every week, I feel like somebody got set up. I'm glad it's actually you this time. It's not me. Anyway,
you're welcome.
Thank you. So terrible twos, story.
Yeah, terrible twos. Yeah. What are all the things you're noticing about the stories of terrible twos?
The terrible twos. There is a lot of crying and screaming and emotions. And something that I'm realizing is he's noticing his emotions. He's noticing that I didn't let him take the fire truck ornament off the Christmas tree so he could break it, makes him angry.
And he likes expressing it.
Yes, he likes expressing it, but he doesn't know how to manage his emotions. And me as his parent, that's my job. That's part of my job. It's to help him, right? And to get him to realize your emotions. And I can see Tawny thinking over there.
Watch out. Here it comes.
I'm scared.
Here it comes. Don't be scared.
No, so many things to wonder about. I'm just always wondering. About that. And just thinking about your job and teaching him a particular thing at this point in his life. I don't know.
I like the word realizing.
Right.
He's not, because realize is a headspace. isn't
Yes.
it?
Yes.
And
Is
he
it?
doesn't have that headspace.
Yes.
Yeah.
Realize would be more of a thinking space sort of construct.
Yeah.
Oh,
Because he's driven by emotion,
yeah.
right? It's,
Mhm.
you know, that part of his brain is the part that's the most developed, is the emotional connection.
Right.
So it makes sense to me that he would be recognizing it in his twos, anger, that type of
Yeah.
thing. He's going to pick up on that in you.
Yeah.
But realizing when I realize something, that's an understanding from a part of the brain that hasn't developed for him yet.
Hmm.
So he can't realize it no matter how well you explain it to him.
Right.
But it seems so in that case, I mean, but you know, the flip side isn't just letting him
Right.
run amok. So Tawny, I'm looking at you.
Right.
What,
Like safety. Right. Because part of it probably that you're a
Mhm.
little nervous about is like if he got really upset and pulled the tree down, like that could be a safety issue. maybe,
Right.
Sure.
Right. So helping him to sort of get into the safety system of the body.
Hmm.
And that doesn't happen from a thinking space. It happens from a body space, that
Yeah.
softening space.
Mhm.
We parents like to talk to our kids 2 years, 3 years, 4 years as they're very smart. They understand when I tell them that this thing is not going to be okay to do this thing. They understand. I can tell in their eyes that they understand and they get that, but they don't have a memory.
Right.
Right. So the next time they're not going to remember, oh yeah, 2 weeks ago when I was losing my self.
My should.
Mom said,
not to do
so
this.
then I should, manage,
Right.
right? So they won't be able to collect that in that particular moment 2 weeks later because of what happened right here,
Yeah.
right now, right?
So let me ask you this, Tawny. How
Mhm.
would you suggest someone in my position to calm him? Because
Yeah.
that part of his brain is not developed, so he can't understand what I'm telling him, right? I mean, he can to some extent, but
He
how would
understands
you
the words, but
right.
processing that into action for him is not
Exactly.
possible.
So how would you suggest bringing him back into a present state
Mhm.
as a 2-year-old?
That's a
Mhm.
great question.
Yes. And of course, we know from our last episode that every child is a little different.
Every child is
right?
different,
So not going to make a
yes.
sweeping assumption that just do this and it's going to work every time
Mhm.
because that's not true.
Shoot.
We can try,
I was
but
hoping that'd be easy.
I know.
Anyway,
That always makes us feel really good if we can just, count on that. But so sometimes less words.
okay.
We don't have to explain all the things.
That's
There
true.
might be just some keywords. It's okay. There might be some keywords
Mhm.
with some physical touch,
Okay.
with some distraction.
Yeah.
And so that when we're using a lot of words, sometimes our energy increases,
Yeah.
right? We get a little revved up when we're using a lot
So
of
we're
words.
trying to over-explain something.
Right. So picking up a few different words that would mean maybe the equivalent of sort of like soften. Soften might not do it, but maybe we've got.
for him.
Yeah, for him.
For him.
So maybe he's got a particular soother that he uses regularly anyway, like a blanket or a smushy toy or something
Mhm.
like that that's already a soother. So you're bringing that soother into play during these
Mhm.
moments
That's
with
smart.
with some physical touch, and you're
Mhm.
really sort of down regulating
Okay.
the experience right there in that moment. We don't have to explain. When he gets a little older,
Then
more of
you
the
Okay.
explaining will be more
Then-
helpful.
Okay.
can't. Okay.
That's just a thought.
Does it then need to be she probably needs to start making sure she's softening as well?
Right.
Of course,
Starting there.
yes, your
Okay.
softening, that practice that you do is going to be really important so that when you're needing this at any given moment, you're already primed to be able to soften first, because that energy exchange is,
Yeah.
there's no way to fight that.
Right.
And fighting that with words or faking it with words like we tend to do
That's
with each other as adults, headspace.
Catching on.
See? It's like a light
Yes.
bulb went on. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And he will, because he is emotional energy driven in
Mhm.
his brain, he's going to pick up on that shift in you,
Right.
just like we do with each other,
Mhm.
right? Even in conversations, like in conversations we have as adults, if you get present and soften, other people respond to that.
Mhm.
It might take a little bit longer for some others, right? But it does happen.
Mhm.
And I think that's an interesting thing. But man, I'm sitting here listening to you guys talk. Nobody talks about that when it comes to little kids.
Yeah.
That whole thing about softening and helping So it's always about rationalizing it out or getting that going. I've seen it. I see it in restaurants all the time. People trying to rationalize something with their kid. I'm like, that kid cannot take in what you're saying. But I hadn't really thought about combining needing to soften ourselves and then something that to him would be the equivalent of softening, whether a word or a
because all of that stuff for him, if you're not soft or if you're
he's not going to be receptive.
No, it won't be meaningful.
Right.
I heard you say something about having the responsibility earlier. Right now, if you want to have responsibility, if that's a word that you want to go with for yourself, which is totally fine, no judgment at all. Maybe it's just the responsibility to soften and be soft with him. And then see what happens.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I got to step in because we're running out of time, believe it or not. We're actually
already?
We are. And so I'm wondering, Emily, there's more to talk about. Would you be willing to come back next week?
No, I'm just kidding. Of course.
Well, we'd love to have you come back. You good with that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, if you could come on next week, because there's more here, because this whole thing, all of a sudden, I feel like just things opened up a little bit. So I want to take advantage of that. So thank you, first of all, Emily, for being here. We look forward to having you next week. Thank you to all of you for listening to this episode of Breaking Up with Our BS. We will be back in a week with another episode. Any homework for everybody between now and then?
Like I always say, notice, and soften.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. I am JDK Winnikin.
I am Tawny Santabria.
Thanks for joining us for Breaking Up with Our BS. We will see you next time.
Oh, I do the live ones too. Yes, I know. I saw your act in the theater. You're really quite good.
Quite a certain harmful habit.
Stop it now, I mean it.
I don't think he felt anything after the crash.
Scusa che è già io.